they can draw 3 cards regularly.
Well, these players have been given the green light, and we are going to be underway here in just a moment. Dylan Donegan, Season 4 Invitational Champion. Reid Duke. Well, his accomplishments speak for themselves. Remember the Pantheon? Grand Prix wins. He does it all. See if he can beat the youngster here from North Carolina. He'll start off with a Scalding Tarn.
In these kind of matches, you wonder how much, the age and experience matters. I don't know if Dylan's ever played a match with this much riding on it. Reid has been here before.
Donegan going to search up a volcanic island. Let's see how he wants to start the show off here. It's a Monastery Swiftspear. Not a bad start.
Really important for Dylan to get on the board on turn 1. Do not want to play a long game against Miracles if you can avoid it. And having some piece of pressure, even if it's not very much, is really important.
Reid going to sacrifice his Scalding Tarn. He's going to go down to 18. See what land he wants to search up here. Doesn't have to really worry about Wasteland given the matchup, so he'll go get a Tundra.
Reid incorporating 3 copies of Dig Through Time this weekend. We've kind of seen and heard mixed results of this card in Miracles, but Reid clearly a fan. And I like Reid waiting until the end of the turn there to pull out the Monastery Swiftspear. He doesn't want to get into a counter battle inside of combat there because that just grows the Swiftspear. So take your 1 point of damage and avoid a big fight.
Now here's the troublesome card. Counterbalance. It's so scary to play against because, well, anything can happen right now. Dylan's going to lead off with Swiftspear. Trigger. Top card. Terminus. It doesn't counter it, but it does take care of it.
Well, this is a huge deal for Dylan because he does have another red source of mana here in Volcanic Island and a Pyroblast to follow up, which will require at least a Force of Will or some sort of counter out of Reid, but he's not locked by the counterbalance.
Yeah, he's going to go for it. Pyroblast. Do you have a Force of Will? The answer is no.
I mean, if Reid's got a 1 on top of his deck in that spot, the game might be over before it even really gets started.
Now, here's what's interesting. Reid taking along with a Terminus. Wasn't sure if he was going to cast it, but he is. Swiftspear is going to go to the bottom. Does Duke have a land? Looks like the answer is yes in Scalding Tarn. He'll pass the turn back over to Donegan. Dylan will draw. Swiftspear is what he's found. He'll start off with that. And now Ponder. Trigger Prowess. Take a look at the top 3.
Given the stakes and the opponent, Dylan looks pretty calm up there.
I imagine winning the Invitational last week did help.
That was a high-pressure match, too.
Yeah. There's an attack for 2. Duke going to go down to 15. Duke with a little Brainstorm action here on Donegan's end step. You see Dylan's hand Spell Snare, Brainstorm, looks like Treasure Cruise as well. And Dylan will let that resolve. So Reid gonna draw 3 cards. You saw the way he drew the first one too, in case it was a miracle.
He has a very defined, very exaggerated miracle draw.
Yeah. 2 cards gonna have to go back here for the Duke. See if he wants to sacrifice that fetch land or not. He'll sacrifice it on the upkeep. So we'll see what land he wants to search up here. Again, he could go basic hunting, or he could go get a Volcanic Island to give himself a red mana, and that's exactly what he's going to do.
These blue-red lists have gotten away from Wasteland, so often Miracles is very conscientious about fetching basics, but here, Reid can be pretty loose about it.
Well, his lands may not die, but they can deal him damage. 2 copies of Price of Progress in the sideboard here for Dylan. Don't know if they're in, but it's something to be cognizant of. Duke will draw. Not a miracle.
It's a very risky card to bring in against Miracles for a number of reasons.
There's a third non-basic. And here's a Council's Judgment. Mana available to play around in days. That'll work. What's important there is that's a card that is exiled, not put into the graveyard. So Treasure Cruise is a little bit more difficult to cast as Donegan draws a card. 2 mana, Young Pyromancer.
The issue here is in the event that Dylan does have Treasure Cruise in hand, Reid is really swimming upstream. It's going to happen eventually. And it's not like Dylan is doing nothing in the meantime.
Oh, he's doing plenty.
He's really taxing Reid's answers right now.
Source of Plowshares will go after Young Pyromancer. That'll resolve. Dylan will get a little bit of life, and Duke will pass the turn back. It's a Ponder now. Reid will take a look at the grip. Ponder's good to go. Young Pyromancer, Delver Secrets, and a copy of Pithing Needle are the cards Dylan's looking at with his Ponder. He'll consult his hand. Spell Snare and Treasure Cruise are the cards that are over there. He'll keep it. Here's a Delver. That'll resolve. We'll head back Duke's way. Duke will draw. Not a miracle. Sensei's Divining Top. He'll pass the turn back over to Donegan.
I have to imagine that Dylan wants the needle at this point. I would be surprised to see him shuffle away.
I think with the way that he's organized his cards right now, however, his Delver's not going to flip. Perhaps the needle is his next draw, or perhaps the Young Pyromancer. Either way, he wants to ensure that it's going to flip, so he's going to cast a Brainstorm with the Delver trigger on the stack. Brainstorm's going to resolve. And you see Young Pyromancer, Needle, and then a mystery card. So he wants to organize things in such a fashion that, okay, my Delver's going to flip. I want to be able to apply that pressure and still have that Needle for top.
Yeah, great flexibility.
Two cards back there for Dylan. Trigger, Spell Snare.
And I'm sure Dylan was loath to show that one because, you know, that's a lot of information to give Reid. But if that's his only spell, it's his only spell, and he's got to show it.
And perhaps he opts to shuffle it away.
Another option, yes, he can shuffle away.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do. Scalding Tarn will allow him to reveal Spell Snare to Delver of Secrets and then shuffle it away and get a land out of his deck. So mystery draw coming here for Donegan.
And it's borderline whether or not he would want the spell snare in his hand anyway, even if Reid didn't know about it. Now with the information public, I think it makes a lot of sense just to shuffle away.
As Spell Snare has some impact in this matchup, I think the main use of it is, of course, countering Counterbalance. But now it seems as though we're probably past that point in the game.
Most likely. Reid's list also has a couple copies of Counterspells. You often see this deck with Snapcaster Mage. I don't believe Reid is playing that, but that's another card to fight with Spell Snare.
Dylan wants to go for a cruise. Reid says, I'd prefer if you didn't. And so he won't. Pyroblast will take care of that. You see Dylan's hand right now. He has a Pyroblast of his own along with a Needle and a Young Pyromancer. Delver will come in. Duke's down to 10. Will Dylan take the opportunity to cast Needle, or does he want to leave a Pyroblast? He'll go with the Needle.
Now there's an argument, you know, you can wait here because Reid doesn't have a way to shuffle his deck, but I don't like letting him go to his draw step and get any other look.
Reid going to spin the top here.
So Reid's done an incredible, or Dylan rather, has done an incredible job of keeping Reid off balance. Reid has not been able to get very much traction in the game. He's under some pressure. Keep in mind, one copy of Baneslayer Angel in his sideboard. And we've seen this card do some work against Blue-Red Miracles, particularly in the hands of Joe Lissette.
He's going to spin again. So he'll draw and then reorganize. You have to imagine he's going to put top all the way to the bottom.
Especially if he has some way to shuffle his deck.
Yep.
Then I'm sure he would prefer to keep his top, but it's not the end of the world.
So now Needle is in play, and we'll get confirmation on what it's naming. And unsurprisingly, he's going to name Sensei's Divining Top. Upkeep, casting a Dig Through time.
And this was the risk of the shields down on that Pyroblast. I still think it was worth it, but Reid's done a magnificent job of setting this all up.
And so now Dylan just has to wait here patiently as one of, if not the best player in the world. He's going to take a look at the top 7 cards and take 2 with him.
Your
Try to
tournament
catch back
life
up here.
on the line here. And Reid gets to take 2 of the best 7.
No thank you.
But by fending off Dylan's Treasure Cruise with Pyroblast, Reid is getting to the point where he can play an old school Miracles game soon enough. If you can get this Delver off the board and keep Dylan from Treasure Cruising, Dylan's got to beat him straight up, and that's hard to do.
And Cruise is the way that they keep up with or pull ahead of you. And Reid stopped him from doing that. Reid's got the 2 cards he's happy with. He'll take a draw for his turn. Two mana. Counterbalance. Remember, Dylan let his spell snare go. In for 3 is an easy place to start. Duke's down to 7. Dylan will follow up. Young Pyromancer, trigger, take a look. That's a 1 mana spell, and it's a good one in Red Elemental Blast.
But at least Dylan got to fish out the information. He had Pyroblast in hand, and now he knows not to cast it, at least for the time being, because of the 1 on top.
Duke will pass the turn back. Dylan's going to go after the counterbalance now. Trigger Young Pyromancer, get an elemental token.
There are a lot of risk associated with this line of play, but all other things being equal, I think Dylan needs to try to squeeze out as much pressure as he can, and the extra point of damage could matter a lot.
Brainstorm here from Duke. With the counterbalance trigger on the stack. 1, 2, and 3 cards. 2 going back. You have to wonder if one of them is a copy of Terminus. Duke armed with a lot of information right now. We'll see what he does with it.
But you get the feeling right now that Reid is starting to get the game turned around. Dylan's running very low on resources. Reid's got a lot of cards to work with, a counterbalance in play. Can he convert all of those extra cards into answering Dylan's board?
2 cards will go back. He'll use his Red Elemental Blast to take care of the Delver of Secrets. That'll bite the dust. And now here's a dig through time. Jeez. More cards here for the Duke. Dig is impressive in this deck.
I've been skeptical just because I think this deck plays so much more powerful when it's spinning through the top of his deck, not really looking at cards. That said, when the game bogs down at all, 2 mana, look at your top 7 and take 2 is going to be a great deal no matter what.
I think it's the games where it doesn't have top. That's where it's at its most impressive. And now there's Red Elemental Blast to take care of that.
Not a bad
draw.
Not a bad blind flip.
In for 3, puts you to 4. Knows he can't play a 1 mana spell, so just an island and a passing of the turn. Duke will draw that Red Blast. Can he get the creatures off the table? Oh boy.
Oh, or he could do this.
Baneslayer Angel is going to put Dylan to the test. Force of Will in hand. Just drew a copy of Spellsnare and has to pass the turn back. Duke will draw. It's not a miracle, and it probably doesn't need to be. In for 5. He's up to 9. Donegan down to 15. An island here for Reid and just a passing of the turn. The race is certainly in his favor now. Dylan will draw Scalding Tarn. He'll attack for 3. Put Duke down to 6. This isn't the first time we've seen Baneslayer Angel do this.
This game's just been a masterpiece from Reid. I'm sure there's been others in this tournament we haven't gotten to see, but this is a masterpiece.
In he comes yet again. Duke up to 11. Donegan down to 10. Dylan hoping to peel. Swords of Plowshares on the upkeep, going after the Young Pyromancer. That's probably not what he was hoping for.
Dylan with Force of Will, Spell Snare left in hand. I don't think there's going to be any better targets for this Force of Will this game.
I don't think so either. Now that Baneslayer's in, how much better can you do? The tough part here is that Reid has a Red Blast in hand. We know that. So if Reid wants to win this fight, he can.
But that's going to be the case for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever changing. So this is at least a token.
Dylan going to Force of Will. He'll go down to 9, removing Spell Snare. Opting to go alternate casting cost style. Reid can put the counterbalance trigger on the stack if he'd like. And he will. And it's Terminus. That one doesn't matter too much in the current game state that we're in, as Reid has the best creature on the table. It looks like Reid will now cast Blue Elemental Blast on Pyromancer. So that's going to bite the dust. And now Dylan's going to sacrifice his fetch land and go down to 8.
I think Reid just wants to clutch that Red Blast for as long as possible to fight over Treasure Cruise.
That's the only card that can probably get Dylan back in it. Dylan going to search up a mountain. Dylan with one elemental token that can attack now, one that cannot. He'll draw a card. That's a face of a player who knows he's in trouble. He'll keep playing as he attacks for 1. Put Duke down to 10. We know Duke's draw. It'll be a copy of Terminus. I've got a feeling he won't be miracling it.
I think he'll just take his draw here.
I think so. On his upkeep, another dig through time.
It's number 3.
Yeah. Dylan's going to force a will this. We might see Reid fight over a will. He wants that to resolve. So Red Blast will take care of the force of will. Now Dig will resolve. Reid doesn't want to draw Terminus anyway, so he'll take a look at the top 7. Take 2 of them with him. Keep in mind, he hasn't even drawn yet for his turn.
And he gets to take some flexible catch-alls here. He gets a Council's Judgment in case something weird happens. But Miracles, you look at so many cards, especially when you dig through time, it's about your whole 75. And this one Baneslayer Angel, as good as it gets.
When you've got that many dig through times in your deck, you can find it, and that is going to do it. Reid Duke is going to win this match here over Dylan Donegan. The Duke with Miracles, expertly played. He is moving on, and for Dylan Donegan, it's been a great 7 days. Season 4 Invitational win. Just got into college and is $10,000 richer, but his tournament here in Roanoke is over.
Had a good